Search together. Search together. IPSA. We're not just a name in a directory. Local minds with national synergy.
In my eagerness to get going, welcome and bienvenue. I've realised that I've started 2 minutes early, so it's very good to see both Hamish McClay of Search Convey here and, of course, Jackie Dyson, latterly of the Yorkshire Search Agency, and now a free agent, as it were, to spend her time doing whatever she damn well pleases. Today, I believe she's getting reduced in a certain portion, i.e. her hair. And we must not make her late for that. But Hamish, I believe today we're going to be talking about mistakes, memories, and magic. Goodness gracious!
Yes, I mean we speak so much about the. I wasn't going to say perfection. The trouble that is taken by IPSA members to actually complete searches. And we don't very often hear about those occasional mishaps. They're often brought about for all sorts of different reasons, and it's hard to put your finger on this. But it's not just the mistakes we want to speak about. There's the memories, the strangest of searches. I mean, there's some very interesting properties we get to actually sort of look at. Particularly, properties on stilts in the middle of the water. There was an interesting one we had on the Scilly Isles. All of these some of these stick in your head, but some stick more than others. And I think what tends to stick in mine mostly are where errors have been made, but the errors have been brought about by the client or the client solicitor, and they've sent us down the wrong route, given us the wrong information. And that's why the errors have occurred. Or the other way of looking at it, the information we have given is being read incorrectly. So I don't know. I mean, Jackie and all her extra years of experience, almost twice the length of time that I've spent on searches, must have noticed a few as well.
Jackie, welcome to the show. We are looking to dive into the vault of memories of weird and wonderful searches that you've undertaken. I'm certain there must be a few that you can recount.
It's no trying to remember them all, because obviously I've done a fair few searches in nearly 40 years. I suppose Halifax, Calderdale Council jumps out at me most, because they have got, people don't realise Halifax has got a lot of very historical buildings, and it was a big manufacturing area. And one of the most famous, I don't know if there'll be a lot out there that won't remember, there's a lot of us that will, Crossley Cosset carpets that used to advertise with the beautiful white Persian cat sat on a carpet. I don't know if either of you two remember that.
Well, yes.
Yeah, well, Crossley Cossets carpets was from Halifax, in a beautiful purpose-built Victorian industrial building known as Dean Clough. And obviously, with the things that go on in the world, British carpet manufacturing disappeared, along with a lot of other industries. And the Dean Clough development is absolutely massive site. Fortunately, it's still there. It is a beautiful building, buildings, and it's on two different sides of the road by an underpass. And it has actually been now split up into smaller units, such as restaurants, art galleries, wedding venues, offices, and then it's been split up again. And so when you've got a search on there, you used to think, oh God, no, please. And it was one that you had to really, really double check. And the other one is the Wool Shops development in Halifax, which is now, I suppose, quite a few years old now, where say a new shopping centre was not, but it's outdoors. But on the side of that is a building known as the Peace Hall, which was built in 1779. So it's Edwardian. It's a beautiful, I think it's a grade 1 star listed. That has recently been refurbished. They have some beautiful concerts there at the moment through the summer. But again, it's one of those sites that you think, oh, please. So yeah, so it's sites I remember more than mistakes, or I think perhaps with my experience a little bit working in land charges and planning, that when I got searches, I would check things before I even started it. You know, does the map match up? Does this match up? Does that match up? And if it doesn't, before I'd done the search, I went back to the client and said, this is not right. You know, I need this, I need that, I need the other, and I need a better plan. Because some of the old Ordnance Survey plans that you get could be missing properties. And that is when you ask, can I have an up-to-date one? But then you get the thing, it's unregistered. We have a lot of yes, there is a lot that is starting to catch up, but we have a lot of unregistered properties in the country, which if they haven't changed hands, need to be registered. They are catching up with it because obviously things are changing fast.
But if they're unregistered, doesn't that put them in no man's land?
I don't know. Your best person to answer that will probably be Jamie from Her Majesty's Land Registry. That is something that the conveyancers have to sort out. I have no idea how they do it. I mean, particularly in this area, there is a lot of unregistered property. So that is something that can add to your conveyancing taking a lot longer because it has to be registered, and Land Registry are quite behind, and with one thing and another. So it's not mistakes. If you can try and stop those mistakes before you go and do the search, is check your search that you've got the right plan for the right property. Is the property you're searching on, does the plan match up? So it's doing those sorts of things. And yeah, it's gut feelings that you know. I mean, if I used to get a plot number in Leeds, I used to think, oh dear. And if it came off several roads, trying to find which road it was actually registered under, if it was Smith Street, West Street, East Street, or whatever, you know, you had to play detective. So you can have hundreds of searches that you can do, and you can run them off because they're just straightforward smoke control orders. But then you'll get one search that can take you days, 2 or 3 days. So it's gut instinct and learning. But yes, there's quite a few sites. There's one in Wakefield in particular that I did not long before I finished, a place called New Miller Dam, which is a massive conservation area. It has battlefields within the conservation area, many listed buildings, bit of a nightmare. And it was actually on Land Registry. Wakefield is one of the councils that's on there. And of course, as Hamish might know, or people that do them on Land Registry, I drew around the site and it brought everything up from next door, around the corner, around the road. So that search actually took me 3.5 days.
3.5 days?
Yes, it took me 3.5 days. I had to go back into Land Registry 3 times to double check things and then onto the council websites and because obviously you don't want to make mistakes.
But that's part of the joy. That's part of the joy, it seems, for a concerted searcher, is not taking what you see on face value, but looking a little bit, lifting the covers and finding out there are bunches of crumbs in the bed. You know, that's
that's it. Say for 10 searches that are straightforward smokes and there's nothing on, you'll get that one. As I say, it took me 3.5, well over 3.5 days. Right. And then I still, shall I go back again? And I thought, no, you've come to the conclusion that's correct. So, yeah, so it's as you say, not making those mistakes.
but it's about pulling together, Hamish, the right information.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And it was one particular search after which I changed my terms and conditions. What it was, the client had sent me a plan. Everything looked absolutely sort of fine. There's the garden, public footpath running alongside it. Fantastic, job done. Jobs are good. And looked at it very, very closely because it was in Hereford. It was very close to the banks of the river, a tributary of the River Wye. I don't think it was the Wye itself. And I thought, wow, that's great. So I sent it back, and I don't know whether it was the solicitor or the client that decided that I was wrong. And I said, well, how am I wrong? And they said, right, look at this plan. And what they hadn't shown me was the piece of land which went between their property and this tributary. Not only did they own, the whatever it ran along the waterside, but it also owned half of the water, which is interesting because they were responsible for that riverbank and sort of all the rest of it. And as a consequence of which, the footpath, which I had been given to believe because of the way the plan I had received, going along the side of the property, went through the middle of the property, had actually gone through their garden. Now, fortunately, it had all been sorted out. So when you actually looked at it and sort of Googled it and looked at the overhead shot, you could actually sort of see that there was a pathway and it was blanked off sort of either side. But yes, I was incorrect. So I changed my terms and conditions to say I could not accept responsibility if I received any incorrect mapping. So that was a good one, which we found out to be sort of obviously it was the wrong map. So we can get that right if we got the wrong map. There's, several sort of interesting ones. And of course, checking though, you get the wrong plan completely. They'll be from a completely different sort of property in a completely different street, and nobody's noticed it.
Yeah.
And you start looking, you think, oh, crikes. So you have to phone, and hopefully, the trouble is, it's not always the case because it could be that the client has actually been using one of the factory conveyances. So it can take several weeks to get that appropriate plan back for you to get the actual information. So that's 2 weeks plus my investigation. So that was an interesting one.
It's incredible, actually. I believe that over time, if you to look back, you could almost write one of those coffee table books about stories of weird and wonderful searches, and also the things you find out. Jackie, there must be times when you start a search thinking it's one way, and by the end of it, it's either contradicted itself or it's completely different.
Yeah, it just all depends how the information is stored at the council and what you're looking at that you're given. I mean, when I started, we worked on plotting sheets, which were ordnance survey plans, and they were, you had to really look. I mean, if you've got a big new development, sometimes there was a planning application number that would be written in one corner, but they haven't shown you that it covers the whole site. So you're looking at your property that's in the top right-hand corner, and this planning application is down the bottom left-hand corner, and you think, well, that doesn't apply. And then you start delving in, and then you think, oh my God, that's the original planning permission, but they've only plotted it in a left-hand corner instead of putting it around the whole site. It's again, it's experience, it's having that nosy brain, if you know what I mean, where you go to another council and they would have put the application number around the whole site, so you knew that it all depended again how your land charges staff actually recorded information or how they were trained to record the information. So in other words, it taught you to think, well, when you look at a site like that, don't just assume that that one in the bottom left-hand corner does not apply to the top right-hand corner. So it's things you learn. It's like any job, really, I suppose. You learn with experience and as you go along. And my dad always used to say, those who never make mistakes never do anything. And that is so true. And fortunately, I only ever made, well, as far as I know, I only ever made one mistake. But that taught me a lesson. That really taught, and that was quite early on in my business. And that made me realize that you can't just assume that what you've got the first time is correct the second or third time. So it makes you more aware that what you look at is, or you think is, a simple search can sometimes turn into the most complex, time-consuming, hair-pulling out search that you'll ever get. I mean, as I say, Leeds is a fair example, where years ago, when a planning permission was given, they're given with conditions. And some of those conditions are materials. So in other words, you've got to submit the materials to the planner as to what they're being built with. And that was it. Now they have to submit an application. It's a conditional application, so that the council can then approve it with a decision notice to say that this has been approved. And that is added and added and added to searches, to what, say, back in the 80s you didn't get, but now in the 2000s upwards, so late 90s, you get these conditional applications that you never got before, because they used to just take the material in and say, yep, that's okay. Quick letter, whatever, to the developer saying, yes, that material you showed at town planning on the 10th of August 1993 is acceptable. Where now there's a lot more, so there's a lot more stuff involved compared to what there was before. And it makes you sit back and think, does that apply? Does that section 106 apply? You've got to do a lot more delving. There's a lot more information out there, and it's redefining it. So therefore, it makes you more wary to hopefully not make mistakes and have to contact your insurance company. And then when you have your PCCB inspection, hold your hands up and say, yes, I've got this complaint going on. So I was quite fortunate, I must say, in all the years I was doing it.
Well, I would say rather than fortunate, careful. Hamish,
yeah,
it's been, as ever, a great trip down memory lane, but also a word to the wise. I think if you research a bit more, you may be able to find interesting stuff underneath. Would you care to take us home?
Well, yes, certainly. The what it is, and many people don't realise the full extent of what a local search can be that you're involved with. There's a couple of really historic ones. I'll only speak about one because the second one would take about half an hour. But this particular sort of one, it was actually a school. It was a private school of which one of the royal family was actually a patron. And therefore, one had to be careful in collecting the information. So, if you like, it wasn't made publicly aware that we're actually sort of carrying out the work, because the school itself was being sold. I don't know if it was being closed down or not. We weren't looking into that. But because of the historical nature of the building, we had to actually go into the archives and all sorts. And of course, we were asked the question, why do you want to go into the archives? And the question was, our client would like us to. And that was all they got. But it was, and the thing is, as Jackie said, sometimes you won't know, in all honesty, that you have got it 100% right. One can assume that it is sort of correct because there isn't any sort of feedback. And on that one, which was really, it was actually fascinating what did come back on the building. And of course, we kept it all sort of nice and calmly under wraps, so only the people that needed to know were actually given that information. But historically, there are some beautiful buildings, and we're rather fortunate. It's one of the fortunate sides of it. and I think Jackie sort of intimated, that's what in some ways makes this business, or makes our part of the business, our part of conveyancing, quite interesting, because you never know quite what you're going to meet next.
You never know quite what you're going to get. Absolutely. I have to thank our guests, of course, Hamish McClay, and thank you to you, Jackie, for your great font of knowledge. And to you watching, there are plenty more. We'll be getting on to more topics outside of pure reminiscence, but it's good to know where you came from before you start traveling to where you're going to. I'm sure someone should write that down on a bumper sticker. But until next week, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and in these rather weird times, wear sunscreen, stay hydrated, and look after your mental health. Bye-bye now.
Bye.